Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome to the show, everybody. As you know, or if you don't, you will soon. My name is Kevin McDonald, and this is Positive Talk. And we've got a great guest that we're going to be talking to, and he's actually right there. So I guess I should talk to him rather than talk about him to his face kind of thing, because it would be better than to do that. But Rodney Miles is with us. Miles, right?
Yes. Thank you very much.
And he is a podcaster of note. He is also what you call a ghost writer, and he also helps people to write their own materials. And we'll talk about this a great deal, but a lot of people, myself included, when I say, I've got a story I need to tell, I have no earthly idea how to even begin. And then somebody says, well, just sit down and start writing. It's like, oh, sure, that's easy for you to say. I've tried that and it never works. So Rodney is gifted at that, and he helps people and he does ghostwriting, which we're going to talk about a little bit. And he's an author of his own books, and we're going to talk about that a little bit too. Rodney, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
It's great to be here. Very excited about this. Thank you, Kevin.
And Brachelle's going to be with us presently. As a matter of fact, just when we thought it was safe to go back into the water, Brachelle is here. And, we'll see if, I think she's here. And she was here, and she's gone, but she'll be back.
Brief appearance, subliminal appearance.
Yeah, exactly. She was gifting us all the time that she wanted to, apparently. And so Rodney, I would love for you to tell us your story. How did you begin doing this, and how long has it been, and how many you've worked with hundreds of people and to develop their own works and their books and their, I imagine anything that they want to write, you help them with. How did it all start for you?
That's a good question. I guess it's part cautionary tale. It's part inspirational tale.
Be careful what you wish for, you mean?
Yeah, actually. Growing up, books played a big role in my life. My mom was a bibliophile. She'd read at stoplights when I was a little kid, for example, and she had books all over the place. But I found I really embraced books as a kid. Anything I wanted to find out that wasn't readily available, I could find in a book somewhere, very often on the shelves at home. So without really knowing what a role they were playing in my life, it went along that way. And I was always part artist, part administrator, part artist, kind of one foot in each. And it got to where, though, I wasn't raised, my parents were both artistic, but neither were artists per se. So I had this notion that becoming an artist kind of was off the table. I didn't know any professional artists. That was kind of out there. That was kind of wild. And I didn't want to wait tables in Los Angeles or anything like that. So kind of gave up on it and went business. I was even pre-law for a little while and hopped around in college quite a bit. Finally landed in creative writing courses that I really loved. I wrote a personal note to a teacher at the time who was kind of a famous author at University of Florida in another age, and got into his class, which had been closed. So I guess looking back, you reevaluate things when you look back at them. That was kind of a little pin for rhetoric, for persuasive writing. But about midway through that class, he took one of the things I'd really put my heart into and ripped it to shreds in front of the class. And it kind of pissed me off. So I ended up not too later left school with just a little bit left to go before a bachelor's degree.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we appear to have lost Rodney, and we're hoping that he's going to be up there. He's back.
Yeah,
I
sorry,
don't know. I don't know what happened.
happens.
And you,
Uh, yeah, I just got dropped for some reason, but it was pretty quick getting back in, so that's good. So I lived my life in business. I got into sales. I always wanted to be very independent, and it was only at 40 when I had a couple of real estate offices and the real estate bubble exploded in Florida and I lost my life savings. We lost our home. We went through a big disruptive change and I had to really decide which way to go to get back into the game. And I could have gone back into real estate. I really liked it. And I felt like it was kind of, I call it the swarm. It was the most opportune thing in the world at the time. So everybody and their brother was getting into real estate. And after the bubble burst, everybody and their sister was getting out. So it was an opportunity if I really like, and I did really like it, but my dad kept pushing me to try my hand at ghostwriting on a platform called Elance, which is now Upwork. And I did. I started writing at a penny a word. I had another job, and it was, I think when you find your spot, when you find your calling, I guess you can connect with it quickly. And something I'd avoided my whole life, getting into the arts more. Uh, and this was more than that because I wasn't just writing. I really got into the publishing. I realized when I wrote my first book on self-publishing that I was active when the ebook was only 4 or 5 years old. When Ingram Spark had just kind of recently started their self-publishing division, Ingram Content Group started Ingram Spark. Not long after Amazon disrupted everything with the ebook and digital printing and that career path, I was working very cheaply, just trying to build up a portfolio, eager like a kid just to learn everything I could find out about these platforms and creating hardcover books and ebooks, and it was fantastic. And a little company out of Australia hired me for some ghostwriting, and our relationship developed to where after about 6 months, I was running the writing department. I was creating a writing department, taking it off the shoulders of the woman who was way overburdened with things to do. They had a very powerful sales front. They sold a marketing package. So, one of they had sold two marketing packages, one of which included the creation of a book to establish your authority and so on. So, when I say 300 or 400 books that I've helped with, it's about 150 of those were in the first year or two. It was just a lot of volume and a lot of learning very quickly. And then I kind of almost went in reverse. When that partnership dissolved, it was the perfect time for me to go out on my own and work with clients a little more deeply and do
oh, he went away again. I think he's going to come right back. If history is any indication, yes, he's back. that's the in- that's the most interesting thing. Now it may be positive. It may be partially Streamyard's issue today,
possibly. Sure.
but we'll
Sure.
just we'll just carry on, young man. We'll just carry on.
Well, I would
And
only add to kind of round it out through the years, mainly focused on what I call book production, which is writing and publishing your book so that it can sit next to anything off of out of New York City or from the big five in terms of quality, right? Their writing, design, even the little details that make it a professional publication versus something that looks self-published. And today I call that production. Others call that the production side of things. I always wanted to learn the rest of the process though. So am very confident in the book creation cycle, I call it, which is 10 aspects of creating and publishing your book. But that leaves the latter 2/3 of the publishing process, which includes your platform and your publicity. And now, after the last, I guess, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, it's been exciting because I've been able to add those things to what I do. So I'm really a self-publishing consultant today, and very easy to work with. After 15 years, I've figured out kind of a way of working with clients that makes it easy. And I don't know. I after 15 years, I still absolutely love what I do. We were talking before the show. Every interview, every client is a story, and it's this whole other education. It's this whole other life experience to do what I do, as I know you can appreciate.
Oh, absolutely. Now, the interesting thing to me is that, and it seems to happen at some point in everybody's life. At one point, you say to yourself, or maybe to your significant other, or somebody else, you say, why am I really here? And what am I here to do? This ain't it. And I don't know what it is. And because that happened to me when I was 42. And
Mm.
sometimes it happens earlier in life, sometimes it happens later in life. But at one point in time when we kind of get the basics figured out, we know now how to date people, we know how to go to school, we know how to get married and maybe have kids and all that. But there is, and we've lost him again. I do not know why. Um, and
And I'm back.
but there comes, but there comes a period of time when you want to discover who you really are and what you're here to do, and the tale of your last 15 years when you say it is you're having the time of your life and it is a very important thing for you to be doing. That's an indication that you're now following your passion, following your heart, and doing what you really came here to do. And that's an important aspect for folks because some people, I like to say this sometimes, is that some people, they have what's called a midlife crisis, where you got a 45-year-old short, paunchy white guy and who's bald driving the hottest car you can find, or somebody else gets divorced and dates somebody 30 years younger than them because they're trying to recapture something. They don't know what it is, but they're trying to live their passion and that kind of stuff. But I think that you found a much more wholesome way to do it, and that is to live your passion. Tell me, what does a ghostwriter do, and how does that process work for you when you were doing that, and now you're doing so much more than that? But how did that process begin for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. Because when I started, it was what I call pure ghostwriting, right? So uh, even back then, when I kind of felt around the space of ghostwriting and what I was doing, quickly decided I didn't want to ghostwrite too much longer because by definition, you're a ghost. You're not really putting together a portfolio. You're not getting credits. Through the years, ghostwriters have gotten credits in different ways. Prior to it being, I, it's come a long way. And to sum up in ahead of the discussion, I would say that ghostwriting's gone from something you would kind of hide to a badge of honor now. And that's in the main due to a fellow named William Novak back in the day who wrote books for Lee Iacocca, Nancy Reagan, I think Frank Sinatra. In the back.
This is really strange, but um,
Harder the kill,
I
greater the win, right?
yeah. Well, you'd like to think that people like Nancy Reagan would sit down and they would write it, but they don't because they're busy people, and they don't necessarily have got the chops to be able to do that. So how does that process? I don't even have any idea how that process works. Do you sit down and interview them for a long period of time and about their life and what happened? Um, throughout it, and then you create a story around it? How does all that work?
That's a great question because that is sometimes the stop for people right off the bat. And um, I wouldn't say a surprising statistic I learned years ago was that when you go into the grocery store and you see the bestseller shelf with fiction, nonfiction, about 70%, I'd heard at one point, of those books are ghostwritten, are not purely written by the author. Now, that means different things. And probably my first few years in the business was very telling because I would get a mandate for a project and I would get anywhere from 2 words to 20,000 words as a mandate as to what this book should be about. And it was in the first year or 6 months of doing what I do, found out every client comes with a different situation at a different point. I had a doctor back then who would write copious notes and he would send over about 20,000 words of notes for what was going to be about a 25,000 word book. And I remember the shortest mandate was 2 words, clean water. So I had to investigate a little more. Well, what does he mean? You know, is this an ecological project? Is it? And he was selling home purification systems. So uh, I learned in those first few years. First, I developed for myself. I developed these things for myself, not necessarily to teach them, but they come in handy now in sharing. 2 methods of writing a book. One I called top down because I had a client come with an outline and she put it on a board and named the chapters. And a lot of people do it this way. And then you just fill in the chapters, sort them out as you go. That's kind of a top down approach. The other.
And while we're waiting for him to come back, we're going to take a real quick break. So we will be right back. And hold on, he's back. And Rod, we need to take a real quick break, and we will be right back with more. I hope we'll be right back.
You became a real estate agent for freedom, success, and real momentum. So why are you still stuck waiting for closings to save you? I'm Ophir Adar, founder of Real Momentum, and I help agents like you become 7-figure earners. My first client that I coached, brand new agent, made $250,000 back in 2006. What's the secret? You feed your white wolf. That's the part of you that's bold and unstoppable and a closer and able to build rapport quickly. So click Get Listings at Real Momentum and let's unleash your real estate potential.
And welcome back to Positive Talk for everybody. And I made a little change, and I'm not sure if the background is causing that, but we shall see here coming up. But we're talking with Randy Miles. Go to his website, which is rodneymiles.com, I do believe.
Yes, that's
so
perfect.
You're the only rodneymiles.com that's out there. That's really good. And so you, when you're ghostwriting a book or writing, are you trying to use phrasings and things like because Nancy Reagan talked a lot, and so would you be trying, if as an example that was your client, would you be trying to make phrases like she talks and to make it, because that's an art form all by itself, I would think.
Yeah, and again, early on, a lot of our clients were from the National Speakers Association. So very early on, I had to kind of confront that idea, which was very cool, about voice, about duplicating somebody's voice. I wanted somebody sitting in an audience listening to someone on stage who had read their book to recognize that as the person who wrote the book. And through the years, I've learned a lot of things just in practice with voice. The way you speak is often different than the way you write. The way you put presentations together, the way that all opposed to the way you want to be presented in your book. I'm working on a memoir right now where the colloquial conversations we've had through many interviews is quite different than how she wants to be presented in the book. And I understand that. It makes sense. So, but you have to start somewhere. So, without as much as I value and understand the voice is critically important to your book. The first step is to create content. And in my book, I redefine a lot of words based on present definitions. One of those is writing. So, writing for many of us, we would think of long form writing with a pen and paper. You might think of using Microsoft Word or a word processor to type into, and you're writing digitally. But I would lump in there any form, any method that gets you there, any method that I used to. I remember for parts of my book, I'd be mowing the lawn, get an idea, and I had a recorder in my pocket. So I'd turn the lawnmower off and record, a paragraph or or a chapter, and you kind of accumulate your content. Hemingway, for example, used to write a 150,000 word book and then edit it down to 50,000 words. Really parsing. Another book I worked on recently, the tone was very, very important to the author, and we got everything together. I inherited that project from another ghostwriting firm, but they were very business copy-ish. So everything they wrote was kind of boom, salesy, and that wasn't what he wanted at all, which is why he sought me out. So we got most of the content together, and then through our conversations, and you're right, the short answer to your question is whatever works for the client. They might record and send me audios.
Hi, Rochelle.
Hi. That was so sad.
Well, it's the weirdest thing. I don't know why this is happening. We'll see if it happens to you, Rochelle.
It did happen to me. Hi, Rodney. Yeah, the same thing happened to me. I tried to join in twice at the beginning, and then I just got new headphones and they wouldn't connect. So I restarted my entire computer and I was like, I'll be patient, but I feel like I'm freak out. So thank you for being here and being patient with us. And I'm very happy to hear your story. So yes, please continue.
Absolutely. So the voice is, I would say, you want to get 75, 80% or more through your content and agree on the content. And then it's much easier, even in a single edit, to go through. For example, the most recent project.
That is so rude. There's no way. Every time we almost get there.
Anticipation, and it's like, oh, but wait, what is he gonna say next? What is he gonna say? Oh, and then he goes away, and then he's back, and then oh dear.
You remember that Stephen Wright joke? He said, I saw a subliminal advertising executive yesterday, just for a second.
Yes. Exactly. And so I guess do you remember where you left off?
Sure. With the process, the basic process. I would
talented of you, by the
way. So the answer is whatever is best for the client, and generally live recorded interviews that then get transcribed and developed are a mainstay. Very often a client will also come with a partial draft or a whole draft. Nowadays, I don't quite do the ghostwriting I used to do. Like in the very first few years, I would write an entire book and then sort of mimic the voice, model the voice. And you find there's a thought leader in self-publishing named Jane Friedman, who I follow a lot of. There's a dozen people who've really taught me about everything I know through the years, and she was one of them. But I'm sorry, it wasn't Jane Friedman. It was Catherine Rush, science fiction writer, who also did work for clients. And I remember reading one of her blogs one day, and she says, "I don't write for clients anymore. I only write for myself." And that was kind of a new concept for me. Now, I edit, but I don't necessarily. I guess I'm not comfortable anymore, or I don't have the need to write something out of whole cloth. So those 70% of the books that are technically ghostwritten, it may be that the writer wrote it whole cloth, or based on something, direction, collaboration, or maybe not. And there are other cases where it's actually the books that I help put out are actually written by the author. Now, whether we got that material through live interviews or they shared a draft, um, it helps to understand the whole process because it can calm you down about writing your book very much so. So much so that it can even enable you to write the book. Now, one of those concepts is to embrace editing. And
Mm.
I put it that way because a lot of people are
That it isn't
reluctant
that a
to do that.
conflict in terms? Embrace editing.
Yeah.
I
I
thought
never
that was
thought of
like a
that.
I thought that was like a necessary evil. No, I gotta go edit the thing now.
Well, Rodney, I think about that, and we kind of do that like in our lives. That's the whole point of like when we're working on something or trying to be better or doing something, we're editing ourselves
Mm,
in that
mm.
sense. So it's just cool that you had that. The way you said that specifically was very cool.
Oh, cool. Well, my favorite analogy is David Gilmour of Pink Floyd fame. And I can sing his solos and huge fan, right? Of him and other guitarists, but he's got to be my favorite guitarist of all time. And I watched him in an interview one day and I said, "How do you," and if you're just a listener, casual listener, and you hear this great memorable melodic solo, you might think it just came out of him, right? He just they were playing and he felt it. And then, that's like a romanticized view of how these things work. It's like anything else. So he explained one day, he says, "No, I play around with soloing for that." And actually, drum teacher I had in high school taught me maybe one of the most valuable musical lessons for drums. He said, if you get a 4-bar or an 8-bar solo, hum the song in your head as you play your drum solo. It makes it so much more enjoyable for the listener. It makes it melodic, it makes it fit. So Gilmore said he'd come up with all kinds of things, maybe even in half an hour's worth of riffs and melodies, and then edit them.
And there he goes. He's off again, and he shall
It's
be
like
back.
the biggest cliffhanger of all time, every time.
I know.
He would edit it down into a 1-minute solo. I think the reason writers seem to have a natural and not unjustified reluctance to editors and editing for different reasons. I think probably foremost is the expense. It can be very expensive. It can be
Well, you're not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. I
This
know
is
I
so
killed
fun.
my background because
You did.
I was hoping that would help.
that might be on my end. We just had some bad thunder, so and our Wi-Fi was out the other day.
Oh, where are you?
Cape Canaveral,
Oh,
Florida.
you're in Florida? Oh,
Yeah.
they're
It's been
having weather
crazy.
there.
Are we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Apparently.
I heard it first from Seattle.
Exactly. Exactly right. So we're, by the way, we're talking with Rodney Miles. He is a ghostwriter, but he's also does a lot of other really cool. He is more of an artiste when he helps doing his own books and helping you put books together and to do self-publishing. We need to take our halftime break, but I want to go through the idea of self-publishing because
Mm.
a lot of authors, they'll send their book, they'll write their book, and they'll be diligent about it. They'll get it edited, and they'll do this and that, and then they send it to a publisher, and then the publisher will rip them apart and say, "Nah, thanks, we don't. Nah, we don't." And so it can be a very, and especially if you believe in the project and you get rejected, that's got to be a hurtful thing. So self-publishing is a different way to go. Do you agree?
Yeah, I recommend it 99% of the time if it's your first book.
Well, then, when we come back from this break, we are going to talk about that. And Rochelle is here, and I'm here, and Rodney Miles is here. Go to rodneymiles.com and find out all about him, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonough and Rochelle. Apparently, I always know when the music is actually playing because she dances to it, unless it's not playing, and then she still dances to it because she remembers it from the last time she heard it, I guess. I don't know.
Something like that.
Rodney Miles is with us. And Rochelle, before we go to the next part, did you have any questions that you wanted to touch base with Rodney about?
Actually, yes, I'd love to. It's something that I love to ask people who do the work that you do, really just anybody, because there is experiences that not necessarily happen and make us want to do the things that we do or guide us into those directions, but there's things that happen during the process that shift everything. And so one question I love to ask people is there a memory or something that you remember so specific that happened in the midst of all of this that really just changed it permanently and changed you even maybe as a person?
Oh, yeah. Lots of books, actually. One of the first memoirs I helped with, a fellow was recommended to me by somebody I'd helped with her book about golf. She was a golf pro, and very cool book, but she recommended a fellow named Paul Hebert. Paul is an old world linesman from Canada. He was in an electrical accident and lost most of his hands and both of his legs. And this was his memoir about, and fast forward, when I met him, he was an active golfer. He was happily married. He spent his summers in Alberta. And I'm in a snowbird state for like Montreal, but they would go and spend their winters in Arizona. He had a lovely life, a beautiful life. And there was just a scene in a movie my wife and I watched called The Delivery Man, an old Vince Vaughn movie where he's got all these kids he didn't know he had. And it starts off, his first kid he meets is a prize basketball player. And he's like, yeah, And then as it goes, he sees different situations with these kids. And it's really a profound sort of view in the film. And one of them is institutionalized, severely handicapped, doesn't speak. And at first he says, I don't want to bother him. I really don't want to talk to him. But they convince him, like, no, go talk to him. And by the end of the movie, he's wheeling them around and they're buddies. And you break through that little level of confront. It's like a little shield a lot of us have. When I was younger, I missed visiting a friend of my dad's in the hospital on her deathbed just because I couldn't fathom. I couldn't confront it. I just couldn't. I couldn't confront it. If that would ever to occur again, I'd be the first person visiting and spending as much time as I could. Because I've learned from people actually like Paul. Paul mentioned, says people, they don't know. They don't know how to act with you when you've gotten a diagnosis or you're in the hospital. He said and I learned it elsewhere. Someone who gets a diagnosis of cancer, I think everybody starts to give them advice and ideas, and they don't necessarily need that or looking for that. But the thing you can always do is spend time, is be there. And I learned that from another guy. I was laying tile in another life, and the fellow's son was playing video games on a Sunday or something. And I respected this guy a lot. He was a local business person of high repute, and he came over and just sat with his son. They didn't talk or anything. He just sat with him. I'd never seen that before. I was like, he's just making time with him. So, it's what you look for too. My values have evolved. The things that are valuable to my wife and I, it's a lot of human experience, a lot of intimate human experience that I'm humbled to get when people trust me. When we work on a book together, I sign an NDA so that because it's the only way to work. You can tell me things that aren't going to end up in your book. You have final cut as to what's in that book. And I find usually people have an idea of what they want in their book, what they don't want in their book. And that usually shifts over, usually, not always, to where they're more willing to share more than they set out in the beginning, because I call it adding to the great library. I don't know if I'm tapping into any other fields of thought with great library, but not quite the Akashic record. It's like all the information we have in this world. When you share your personal story, you don't know who it's going to reach. You don't know if it's going to reach 1 million people right away or one special person 200 years from now. But when you publish, it's you're contributing to it. You're sharing your experience. And in all kinds of, every book changes me to some degree.
I bet.
It's
Well,
fabulous.
thank you for sharing. That is beautiful.
Sure.
And I gotta ask you though, being a ghostwriter and working with other people, do you ever get like, because we get this because we'll do something for somebody, we'll do a commercial for somebody, and they'll give us some stuff, but then we will present it to them, and it's like, no, that's not quite it. Well, what do you want? I don't know, but that ain't it. Or it's that's great except for this one little thing. And so when you are doing the work that you do you have people that micromanage you, and how do you keep your sanity when that happens?
It doesn't bother me. It's all positive now, and that might just be because of what I've learned about the process. And what I mean is, there are cover design comes to mind immediately. When a client comes to me, I kind of guide them on how to design a cover, what a cover should have, right? There are some 3 or 4 basic vital things that a book cover is supposed to do. And if you're off on them, it's critical. It can be fatal to have a book cover that looks like science fiction when it's nonfiction, for example, as one of the parameters of meeting the genre expectations. And then there's a few other technical, artistic things, but just perfect example. I've just embraced it. There's that word again. That might be our motif today. Client gave me his full draft. It's our 3rd book we're working on together. I got into it and pretty quickly made a suggestion to trim down the title a bit, do it in bold, and I got enough of the content and from his previous books to keep something that was fairly consistent for his branding and so on, and designed 3 cover design concepts and sent them to him. And he wrote back a few days later. This is interesting too. This will tap into another topic, but with two brand new cover designs. So he kept my idea for the bold and the truncated title for the punch, and even the format. But he used AI to develop the same book cover, but one in green, one in purple. Very simple. It looked fantastic. And those two covers he came up with we'll probably use one of them actually as it is, because it really looked professional. It really looked dynamite. It's a book about prosperity, so green or purple are great semiotics for that. And so he gold lettering. He's right on with, and it fits his brand. It fits his message. But what really struck me at some point is, and the other part of your answer is yes. I've got clients who just, you're the book guy, you do it, and they're happy to run with it. And I have other clients who are very in the weeds, so to speak. And maybe I'm used to both, but I've learned that the only way that goes off the rails is with a bad process. For example, we don't want to you want to handle editing in a certain way. You don't want it to get out of control and go on forever. So there are process kind of parameters that'll keep you on track without your project going nuts. And by the way, everyone who comes to me with a book, everyone who writes a book, it's very special. It's special in anyone's life. It's easier now than when I was a kid, thanks to self-publishing, but it still doesn't matter. I've had a lot of clients that write what I call a legacy book. They don't care if it sells. They want something in print that they can give to their kids and their grandkids. And how cool if your great grandfather had written a book, you could read it today. So what that means a little more, I do my best to make every project challenging, exciting, special. God willing, it's memorable in some way, highs, challenges you get through, stimulating. And my hope is by the end of every author's life, they can look back and see their book, not just the book live and what happened, because that's the book's first day, if you really think about it. See this whole incubation period and development as a memorable experience. And I try to do whatever I can to make it that way. So, but as far as the tweaks, there are cover designs I never would have come up with without client collaboration. There's certainly covers the client never would have come up with without my expertise and my creative contribution. And by the way, one small note, and I'll shut up. I've had both creatively. If you're in anything creative, you have to not necessarily thick skin, but you have to have the capacity to have your idea turned down often. So I've had titles of books that I came up with for a client. I had one where she literally screamed. She went, "That's it." She was so happy. It was amazing, right? And then I had a cover design where I sent the design, and the client said, that wasn't really that was a joke, right? That wasn't really the suggestion. And I said, "Oh yeah, no, that was a goof. That was just a."
I was just making that up just to see what your reaction was gonna be.
That cover, no. Now we'll do the real. So you have to be willing in anything creative to have your work cut up into pieces and rearranged, and because it's the author. You're there to facilitate and contribute, not to dominate, which goes back to the problem with a lot of editors. They'll tell you, I have people come to me for editing, and I'm a very casual editor in a sense, I guess, because of my viewpoint. Things like, well, it's also the genres that I work in. I generally work with books intended for a popular audience. So I'm not doing white papers or grants or, academic writing. So you've got a lot of leeway. You do want everything professionally, grammar, spelling, flow, diction, content. You want that. But you'd want that with the purpose of facilitating the read and highlighting the author's ideas. One of the most amazing experiences I had years and years ago, I think in the first few years, I was looking for editors for our little writing team, and I ended up hiring 3 or 4, but I put out a sample paragraph to a dozen editors and said, a very brief paragraph, which is okay to do. And I had, please edit this paragraph. I got 12 different meanings, 12 different, it was incredible. Different focus, different. It astounded me how that same original paragraph could mean practically 12 different things in terms of emphasis or whatever they did. So you need to find, I'm sorry, I love what I do. And these things I think are terribly helpful. Like in terms of editors, it hit me one day. I think I was reading I'm not a horror fan per se, but I read Stephen King's book called On Writing, which is excellent. Inside take on his career as an author. And he might have had a chapter in there about editors, but I noticed him, another author I love, Eric Larson, they just kiss their editor's feet at somewhere in the acknowledgments or something. And you find out, I think in Stephen King's case and many other authors, they find an editor and it's a lifelong partnership. So I've had people come to me for editing where they'll tell me things, shocking things like, my editor told me it couldn't be this way, or that it had to be this way, or you can't do that. And I'm like, who the hell is this editor? That's not their book, And I think it's a inversion. Grammar works for us. We don't work for grammar. We're writing a book. We want to convey ideas. And in that, you've got a duty, whether you're a teacher or an author or a parent, to convey your ideas in the most interesting, engaging way possible. And you're not here to pass a test. That's in popular audience writing anyway.
Exactly. And by the way, again, we're talking with Rodney Miles, and go to his website, rodneymiles.com, and you can find out all about him. He was a ghostwriter. Now he does editing. He does covers. He can virtually help you learn how to do this and self-publish and do the whole thing. And when we come back, Michelle's got a major exciting question to ask you when we come back from this break. How's that for pressure, Michelle?
Perfect. Love it.
Be right back. Are you looking for a powerful way to grow your brand while making a real difference? Well, Positive Talk is the perfect platform to align your message with inspiration, hope, and meaningful conversations. By sponsoring Positive Talk, your brand will reach an engaged audience that values positivity and connection. People who want to support companies that share their values. Take this opportunity to showcase your business in a space that uplifts, inspires, and creates lasting impact. Don't wait. Email me, Kevin@kmmedia.pro today to learn how you can partner with us and spread positivity while growing your brand. And welcome back to Positive Talk with Rochelle. She's over there. That's her. And my name is Kevin McDonald, and Rodney Miles is with us, and he's also a podcaster, which we're going to talk about here in just a second or two. But first, Rochelle, have you a question for the young man?
Sure, I always can have a question. Yeah, so I was thinking all the way back now, have you always had this kind of built in, like did your parents or people around you as a young kid kind of inquire these things and it kind of just built itself as you grew through your life? Or was there like something specific that was like, you know what, maybe I'm going to look into that, and then you kind of never walked away from it?
Yeah, I always had a love of books. I'm a bibliophile.
Okay.
And I have to credit my mom initially for that. And I tell this story by my book, The Modern Author. Kevin and I were talking, I think before the show, about we'd be little kids in the car, and at a stoplight, she'd crack open a book and read a few pages. She had a library.
Fine
That's very
example for
unique.
a mom. Yeah.
And then growing up, I found I find books in the house with answers to questions. I would got into magazines, in particular, like Mad Magazine when I was a kid, and the little paper. I used to put. People might not believe this. When I was a kid in New York, Staten Island in the 70s, I'd take change, like coin, rip out an order form from the back of a magazine or a Mad Magazine little paperback, check off the book I wanted, which was like $1 or something, put in the change, quarters and pennies and stuff, put a stamp on it, and mail it to Manhattan, and they'd ship me my book. And it's a cool memory. So, and it's funny, I have to say, in high school, I had some wild oats, in college as well, and I don't think I ever read a book, with few exceptions, that was required in school. Maybe this is a bad example, but I don't think so. I've got a particular view on structured education, what it's good for and what it's not good for. And forcing somebody to read something they're not interested in is probably a bad idea. But in the meantime, I was reading things just personally that I wanted to read. And I had the acumen, I guess, to pass the test, even with B's and A's and stuff, through summary or through. Someone reminded me the other day, they read the first sentence of every paragraph, ding, 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 and kind of get a glimpse at the content that way. So I just found anything I did, sales, real estate, arts, the answer was in a book somewhere. I used to go to a bookstore, and if I wanted a book on gardening, I'd find 3 or 4 of them, kind of look them over. I do it now. I'll get 3, 4, 5 books from the library, and just to inspect them and figure out which one or 2 that I want, and then buy them, you know? So I just found it's like an incredible books on psychology, books on anything, parenting, health. It's still the medium. Now the medium has exploded in really positive ways. I know people who read a book each week on a treadmill by audiobook. Reading, writing, publisher, bestseller, these are all terms that have changed fundamentally. They preserve their original definitions from 20, 30, 40 years ago, but they have additional definitions today. Critical if you're self-publishing. And I talk about those new definitions in my book. I called the first book on self-publishing that I put out The Modern Author, just for that reason. Once you understand the secret behind bestseller lists, you're a modern author. Once you understand the difference in publisher, what that means, you're a modern author. And if you don't, you are you're missing. You're not just susceptible to pitfalls, but you're missing out on a lot of opportunities. So I think if you have that briefing on the industry today, you can move forward confidently, produce a great book, make it a great experience instead of a horrible experience, and hopefully keep writing. My suggestion is write a book a year if you want to become you'll eventually be a full-time author. No better way to retire.
Rochelle, have you thought about writing a book? I've tried. God knows I've tried. I can talk, but I can't write what I talk. And which, by the way, brings up the idea of how, in your opinion, and at this point, it's all just opinion anyway. What's AI going to do to authorship and writing books and all of that? Is that going to have a profound impact, do you think?
Yeah, and I think the industry is only now, I don't think it's even sorted out quite yet, because there's still a lot of unknowns.
And there
No.
he goes. A lot of unknowns, including that we don't know where he went.
For example, when you upload a book to, I'm just going to continue.
Without even missing a beat. Bless you, my boy.
Hold on. jump in. As maybe a good immediate example, when you upload a book to Kindle, which is Kindle Direct Publishing, it's Amazon's proprietary publishing platform, and it that's another word. Kindle used to mean ebook because it was essentially the first ebook. Now Kindle Direct Publishing includes paperbacks. Even they introduced hardcover publishing a couple years ago in limited form. So, but one of the questions through the process is, and a few months ago or 6 months ago, it was AI used in the creation of any of this material? Yes or no? Now lately, they've expanded that. Was AI used in the creation of content, design, images? They're breaking it down. It was interesting to me. There's another site I love for free images called Pixabay. And when AI sort of exploded, you went from having, just to use a simple number, say 100 images to 10,000, because someone created and uploaded 9,900 AI images like in a second. So there's a filter now on Pixabay where you can check, I don't want any. In fact, they even call it authentic images. I'm like, oh, okay. Most people I know are in a hurried rush to embrace it and play with it, and they're excited about it. I am not that way. I'm a little hippie, I guess, on the whole thing. Elon Musk was asked if AI wanted to, between AI and robotics, take over the world, do we have a chance? And the thing I love about Musk, he'll sit there and quietly for a moment and organize his thoughts. And he said, as long as there's a bigger, more powerful, benevolent AI to defend us. So the answer was kind of no. I see AI as a superior form of intelligence without a soul. So it's like a pet dinosaur. You have to keep it on a leash. You know what I mean? We have to proceed carefully. And there's ethical questions. Do you write a book as if it came from somebody when they didn't write it? There are possibilities that weren't possible before. So I've been cynical personally. I have embraced it in ways now with research, with not so much design, but I might even be embracing it a little to assist with design. With research, one of the best examples is I generally use the Brave browser, and I can type in to Brave, does Ingram Spark offer A5 trim size? And wait, and it'll populate, and boom, yes, they do. It has just accessed documents and stuff that would have taken me 5-10 minutes to find. So I'm finding I use it for facilitating things. There are places I don't think it should be used, but I used to think I was wishy-washy or uncertain on the whole subject, and I'm finding it's the whole industry, the whole publishing industry, the whole world perhaps is going to be wrestling with this it's a good thing. It's a disruptive thing. So it remains to be seen, I think.
And by the way, we've been talking with Rodney Miles. Go to rodneymiles.com, find out all about him. And Rochelle, anything before we go? Because we're going to have to leave here real quick.
No, we're
Any
just
thoughts?
thank you for your time, Rodney. You are putting in the work, you're doing this, and you're helping people share what is truly meaningful to them. That is what matters. That's what we're here for. You get to build a legacy with the whole world. So keep at it. I'm excited for you. I can't wait to see where you end up in another 20 years and get to help more people. But anything you'd like to share before we take off?
Well, I offer a free bundle. So, in fact, I just got
Very
it
good.
set up recently. It's totally free. You do sign up, but if you hate that, you can unsubscribe. But you get a free copy of my 256-page book. You get a Gantt chart that maps out the whole process of best practices in creating your book. And you get a document I give clients, which is 8 pages and tells you what accounts you need. So it's really a good little put you in the boat and give you a shove start, whether you're a
And in that case, if you you go to rodneymiles.com and you can get that freebie and everything else that we've got going there. I want to thank him for being here. And Rodney, you're back. Thank you. And we have to leave now. So
Yeah.
have an awesome day, man.
Thank you both so much, Michelle, Kevin.
Bye.
Thank you. It's been great.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got.